Hey everybody on YouTube. It's me, Dayna, the People's Oracle. I'm over here trying to get all of these streams going. I'm over here playing content creator and producer. Let's get this Clubhouse going. Let's get this Instagram going. Dang, it took my title. Oh, no, it's still here. Okay. All right. Can y'all hear me okay on YouTube? Hey, Instagram. It's me, Dayna, the People's Oracle, the Sidereal astrologer. Hey, YouTube. Let's start the room on Clubhouse here. Yeah, y'all know what time it is. Hey, Winter. Edit. Limit to off. All right. Hey. Hey, everybody. Just giving folks a chance to show up and get settled into their seats. Please don't leave your coats or jackets in the pew. Please put your belongings under the seat so that everyone can have a seat. That's what they used to say at church growing up. No holding seats in the pews with the no holding seats in the pews with your belongings. Thank you, Francine. Please remove your belongings off the pew next to you so that everyone will have a seat today. No holding seats. The ushers will come and ask you to remove your belongings. Oh, man. Let's see who we got on YouTube. We got some folks on Instagram. Hey, Clubhouse. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. It's me, Dayna, the People's Oracle, the Sidereal astrologer. Check my bio if you don't know. We're doing a reading for the full moon, which is this Thursday. It's kind of early, but this is one of those full moons that you do not want to let catch you off guard. Let me just let you all know that. Like, this is not the full moon that you want to wake up the day that the moon and sun are perfecting their opposition and being like, wait, now what's going on? This is so much so the case that I actually published a blog post last week on my blog, thepeoplesoracle.com, that said the full moon in Cancer is coming, and I'm trying to let you know so that you won't be shocked. Like, I'm trying to give you the heads up. You understand what I'm saying? I'm trying to let you know what's what before we get there. So, per usual, I'm going to pick one person from each of these platforms to get a reading, and to my Instagram listeners, I know that the congregation over there is going to answer most of your questions so that I don't have to, because that's the kind of community they have there. But do not put questions that you really want me to ask in the timeline, because I'm not going to read them. Okay, if I take questions today, please save them for when I field them and put them in the question box. Give me a second here. All right, let's start with Clubhouse today. I guess we could turn hand raising back on, Winter. And
can you badge me?
Oh, I'm sorry. I keep forgetting to do that. Make a moderator. I keep forgetting that even though I add you as the person who I'm doing the room with, it doesn't automatically make you a moderator, which is dumb. I call myself trying to be a mother on top of things and put in an order of food for my son to be delivered in an hour, and they just cancel my order. That's just really whack. I think I want to fight. All right, so you can allow one person on the stage, Winter, and then turn the hand raising back off. I'm going to be over to y'all on Instagram and YouTube shortly. But, yeah. Who we got over here on the young Clubhouse? Who's going to come up?
Let me try someone else.
Because they not coming?
Yeah.
Oh, they lost.
Okay,
hi, Nicole.
Hi there.
How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm well. Y'all know the rules. No question. We just seeing what it do. All right, we've got the Justice card on the bottom for Nicole on Clubhouse. For all of you who are tuning in on YouTube and Instagram, hold tight. I will be pulling a card for one person from each of those platforms shortly. All right, so we've got the Justice card on the bottom of the deck when I cut Nicole. This is a card of decision making, of get out your feelings, check the facts, gather the evidence, and make do what you got to do. Oftentimes, the Justice card is simply saying there's an important decision to be made. This is not an emotional decision. This is not a financial decision. There's not one particular set of criteria you need to be focused on to make this decision. This is really about using your judgment and trusting your judgment to make a decision. So let's see what the card is here. Oh, we've got the Emperor. Nicole, are you do you have like a business idea that you're wanting to start or have begun recently?
Yeah, I did actually start on a business venture in November.
Okay. So this looks like it's time to get your stuff in order. This might be in terms of taxes and finances. This might be in terms of your business entity, if that's applicable. But oftentimes the Emperor is simply saying, like, you need to be more organized, more strategic. You need to take control and be the boss that you are. Things are not just going to work out on their own. And you need to take this moment where you're feeling empowered, maybe where you have the time or the ideas, and really plan and organize and focus on executing. I'm wondering if the Justice card showing up might be indicating that emotionally you might be having some hesitation, or there are some other factors that you feel are holding you back from being the boss you know you need to be. And that this is kind of saying like, yeah, no, let's not do that. Let's set your feelings aside, set your hesitations, your worries aside, and step up to the plate and take control. This is about control. Does that make sense, Nicole?
Yes, absolutely.
Was that helpful for you?
Yeah, it was like that. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm so glad. Thank you, Nicole. For those of you who are still, you're welcome. For those of you on Clubhouse who didn't get a chance, I'll probably be taking 3 people after I finish the full moon reading. So hold tight. All right, Instagram. Now let me do YouTube. Who we got? Mila J. Let's do Mila J from YouTube. All right. I've got the Golden Thread Tarot here. For those of you who are curious, Clubhouse, y'all can't see, but y'all can see. All right, we've got the Two of Pentacles for Mila J on, why is this doing this? Let's see. Oh, this one to act funny, huh? Okay. Two of Pentacles on the bottom for Mila J from YouTube. So this is about managing your time, energy, and resources, budgeting, really keeping track of what you have or having to be cognizant and present, focusing on how you manage your time and energy, how you manage your money and budgeting. Oftentimes the Two of Pentacles is just about recognizing limits and understanding how those limits determine how you should divvy out whatever it is that you have. Again, whether it's time, money, energy, or resources. The card on the top is Four of Cups. Oh man. This is leading me to believe that you're having some apathy or feeling apathetic about some limitations that you're dealing with. Oh man, here goes this word power again. So we had power as a theme for Nicole in terms of managing their business and organizing and taking control. I think here that there is a feeling of powerlessness. Falling off the horse might be a word for you, Mila J. So I feel like if in the past you've established some kind of routine, some kind of budget, some kind of way that you're managing your time, energy, or money, and you've recently fallen off, this is a recognition of that it's at this time for so many of us, it's very hard to stick to our routines, to make sure that we're eating, getting enough sleep, and managing our time in a way that makes the best use of what is available to us. So I almost want to say these cards, Mila, are giving you permission to just for a moment, like chill. Like you don't have to be so hardcore about keeping a budget of time or a budget of money. That it's okay to like chill for a second and understand that you're not always going to have the motivation to push as hard as you want to. If you're a type A personality, Mila J, and you like to keep spreadsheets and keep everything all nice and ordered and neat and lined up, like sometimes you don't feel like it, and that's okay. And with this full moon in Cancer coming, most of us not gonna feel like it, and so that's all right. It's all right. It's all right. I love the opposing advice here for the people. I've been giving readings here that for some people, this is a time to get your power up and to take control and be the boss and let this energy move you and motivate you towards some goals. And for others of us who are naturally type A personalities, who think that we like to have everything in control, like sometimes you don't feel like it. And that's not a reason to punish yourself. All right, I looked over here to this screen on Instagram, and we have Tiny Bug, who's raised their little brown hands over here for a reading. Let me just shuffle this one time. I hope y'all got y'all pens and papers and notebooks ready, because today we're having an astrology lesson. Y'all remember when I used to do those, come on live and give y'all astrology lessons? Well, that's going to be a big part of this particular reading today, because we need to debunk some astrological myths that are keeping y'all locked up into some things that are keeping you imprisoned. All right, Tiny, what was the name? I done lost it that quick. Tiny Bug. All right. Oops. All right, Tiny Bug. We've got the wheel. All right, this is about cycles. This is about changes and shifts that come in predictable cycles, much like the new moons and the full moons. They come every month. So it's not a surprise that we're having a new moon. Your menstrual cycle, your moods, different schedules that might be predictable in your work or your schooling or whatever it may be, holidays, cycles around and seasons. So yes, that's what the wheel is about, seasons. Let's see here. We've got the 10 of Swords. All right. This really feels like some mood regulation stuff, Tiny Bug. And Spirit is really just talking to everyone I've read for so far about understanding what time it is, right? For Nicole, it's time to boss up and harness your power and take control, take ownership. And then for Mila J, it was like, you don't have to spreadsheet yourself to death. Like, relax, relate, release, let yourself feel unmotivated and uninterested. And for you, Tiny Bug, oh man, how are you keeping track of your moods? How are you keeping track of maybe anxiety, if it's that something that you experience? How are you noticing the patterns and the cycles of when you are triggered into overthinking? How are you noticing, and what kinds of patterns are you observing in the ways that you might get caught up in your head and caught up in your mind and stuck in these patterns of thinking? These cards are saying that there's a pattern here, there's a cycle here. And again, this is not something that you have to force yourself to control. There's a theme of surrender here for you, Tiny Bug. Surrender in terms of understanding that if you pay attention, these bouts of anxiety or overthinking or analysis paralysis, they're not something that are coming out of the blue and like shocking you. And if you feel that they're coming out of the blue and shocking you, it's because you have not been paying attention. This is a really such a perfect segue into what I want to talk about today in terms of this full moon in Cancer, which perfects this Thursday, January 28th. But for those of you who are not new here, you know the rule. The astrology is in the lead up. If you wait for the day that it shows up on your iCal, in your calendar, if you're waiting for the moment that you see it come up your Twitter feed because one of your favorite astrologers says, today is happening, like you missed it. You missed it. Right? That summer doesn't begin just because the calendar switched over to June 20 in terms of our experience of it, in terms of the temperature and the weather patterns, that there's a climate, how do they say it? Climate eschatological, I think is the phrase, start and end of a season where even though technically the summer solstice, right, the day where the sun is giving us the most light that we're gonna get all year, summer really already started before that. The plants are already in their zhuzh. The temperature has already changed. Our pineal glands have already been adjusting to the changes in light. And so if you're waiting for a date on a calendar to let you know the seasons has changed, you missed it. And so this is the same thing with astrology. If you're waiting to physically see those two planets do what it is that they're doing, conjunction, opposition, square, in terms of the full moon, we're talking about a sun-moon opposition. If you're waiting for that day, you missed it. It's the same thing for those of us who menstruate. If you're waiting for the day you bleed, like, you missed a whole bunch of stuff that was happening before that, right? So one of the things that watching the lunar cycle, meaning watching what the moon is doing over the course of a 29-day period, the signs it enters, the aspects it makes, particularly with the sun, right? What this lets us know is about the fluid nature of time. And even though we like these black and white abrupt endings and beginnings, this is not really an accurate reflection of how we experience time and how we experience cycles. And the thing that we experience most readily and viscerally that articulates that truth is your body. Your body does not give up what time the clock says. Your body does not care what the calendar says, right? Those of us who menstruate, again, it could be 30 days this month. It could be 31 days next month. It could be 23 days. Your body is not counting time the way that we are intellectually counting time. Astrology fundamentally is a tool for timekeeping. And instead of telling you what the hour and minute is in terms of a rigid black and white segmenting like the standardization of a clock or calendar, astrology is concentric circles and spirals of patterns and seasons and cycles. We're coming up on the full moon in Cancer, and just 6 months ago there was a new moon in Cancer. And that's significant because, again, if you're waiting for the day of the full moon in Cancer to tell you what that means and what's going on, you've missed it. The power is in observing the pattern. The power is in observing the cycle. So right now, I am referencing the blog post that I recently pulled together from some tweets. The name of this blog post is "The Full Moon in Cancer is Coming," and I want to scroll down to this part where I've put in this blog post an image of the chart for the full moon. And those of you who have my Reading Your Sidereal Birth Chart workshop, you will remember the very beginning of that workshop where I talk about the tools and the tasks. Another way to say the elements and the modes and these patterns in your birth chart and what it means. Observing these patterns is applicable not just to a natal chart. I can look at this full moon and see some real clear patterns here. And one of the patterns that emerges is that there's a preponderance, a dominance of cardinal signs occupied in this chart. As a matter of fact, there is only one planet in this chart that is not in a cardinal sign, and that's Mercury, okay? So we talk about modes like cardinal, fixed, and mutable in terms of tasks. What kinds of experiences? In the natal chart, what kinds of experiences have our lives given to us? And we can look at a chart like this full moon and ask, at this moment, what's our task at this moment? Well, if it's cardinal signs initiate movement and create order. It is about control. And I love how that theme came up in all of the readings for the guests who got a complimentary tarot reading at the top of this, that control is this theme here. I've named this the power of protection. Okay. And as it relates to these cardinal signs here, that are 3 of 4 are occupied. The 4 cardinal signs are Cancer, Libra, Aries, and what did I forget? Capricorn. Libra is the only sign that is not occupied at this full moon. One of the other things that I reference in this blog post that's in the Reading Your Sidereal Birth Chart workshop is the wounds and the gifts of each sign. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be doing some study guides and study groups as addendums to that workshop over the spring and summer, hopefully. And the first one that I want to do is on the wounds and gifts of each sign. So in this particular full moon, though, we've got the Sun, Saturn, Jupiter, and Venus all in Capricorn. Mars is in Aries, and of course, the full moon is in Cancer. Before I go over these wounds and gifts of these signs, I want to point out that when we're observing and interpreting the full moon, what the moon is actually giving us perspective on is the sign the house occupies. It's giving us context and a reference point for understanding that, because that's where the light is. And what the full moon teaches us is you cannot necessarily perceive something directly while you're in it. You need a little distance. You need a little time in order to really understand what's happening. So for Capricorn, where the Sun, Venus, Saturn, and Jupiter are, and if you have sidereal Capricorn anywhere in your birth chart, save or excluding Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, I do not use those planets in my work, especially not necessarily in natal charts. But if you have the sign sidereal Capricorn occupied in your birth chart, 2 things. What I'm about to say is probably going to resonate very deeply with you. And the other piece is that in terms of these wounds and gifts that Capricorn offers, these are things that you're going to be feeling very heavily, not just right now, but over the past year and for the next year or so, that this theme of the wounds and gifts of Capricorn is something that is pressing in terms of the work for you in your life right now. Collectively, we're all under this same size, the same sky rather. So we're all dealing with this. But if you don't have sidereal Capricorn in your birth chart, 2 things for you. This is going to activate your own Saturn, right? So if you've got the 2021 The Will to Live content from my forecast and predictions for this year, the Saturn in your birth chart worksheet, this is why I had you fill that out, because we're still building up to the Capricorn tsunami. And for everyone, regardless of what your chart has in it, your Saturn is being awakened. And it's so important that you understand your own Saturn as we deal with this Capricorn stuff. On to the wounds and gifts of Capricorn. The wound of Capricorn is neglect. The gift of Capricorn is resourcefulness and competency. The trauma response to Capricorn when you've been neglected is repression, but also withholding. Withholding from yourself, withholding from others. I want you guys to just take a moment and really think about not your personal life, but our common fate right now. And think about where in our communities, in our nations, we are confronting and being wounded because we are being neglected. How has this neglect given us opportunities for resourcefulness and competency. Competency means the capacity to really take control and make something happen in an efficient and effective way. This is the gift of Capricorn. Ask me how I know. No, seriously though. Think about that. Think about the ways that we're collectively confronting neglect. And think about the ways that this collective confrontation with neglect is putting a spotlight and a magnifying glass on our own personal experiences with neglect. The fact of the matter is that we are neglected in our personal lives, with our families, with our caregivers, because of the lack of care and attention that our institutions give us. And it becomes this negative feedback cycle. This is why the trauma response for Capricorn, the trauma response to neglect is repression and withholding. One of the ways that it just breaks my heart to see this right now is this conversation about student loan forgiveness and how people who suffered because their government and their institutions did not establish protocols, processes for affordable education. Now that it's up on the table that some people might get student loan forgiveness, well, they're like, no, I had to pay mine off, so you should have to pay yours off. Why is it that just because someone else lacked the capacity, the compassion and empathy to think of you, you think that everybody else should be neglected? This is the way we weaponize our trauma against each other. We create identities out of being neglected and then say everyone else should be neglected too. If I have to suffer, you have to suffer. Where is sharing the burden of survival in that? On to Mars, where Aries is. On to Aries, where Mars is. I'm sick of Mars. Mars needs to take a nap. Mars needs to sit in time out and think about what it's done, because it's been doing the most. The wound of Aries is abandonment. Ooh, do you see how these go together? Neglect and abandonment. Oftentimes when we are neglected, we internalize that we must abandon ourselves in order to get our needs met. This is kind of where repression comes in. There's a really special relationship between Capricorn and Aries. Mars is exalted in Capricorn. The gift of Aries, this is one of my favorites, is courage and audacity. The trauma response to abandonment for Aries, and again, this goes for anyone who has any Aries placements in their birth chart. Right now, I'm particularly thinking of people who were born in 2000, 2001. Was it in 2000? Let me pull up a little chart here real quick. There was a massive, stellium in Aries. I believe it was 2000.
I think it was 2000.
Oof, yeah. I just pulled up the chart for April 2000. Woo! For most of April, Sun, Jupiter, Saturn, Mars, all in Aries. Then by the time we get to the new moon in Aries on May 3rd, 2000, Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, all in Aries. That, now that I'm looking at this, that's significant to this moment, because once we get to the new moon in Capricorn, the sky is going to look very similar to this. Sun, Moon, Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn, all in Capricorn, save Mars in a different sign. So that might be another really important point that we can reference to understand this Capricorn tsunami that's coming. The trauma response of Aries is recklessness. When you have been abandoned, you don't know where the limits are. The adults have stepped out of the room and you are left to your own devices. What happens when the teacher leaves the room? The children all start vying for power and control. And generally, the one who's the most brazen and physically strong is the one who's going to win. Patriarchy. There might be some other dynamics at play, but we internalize that very, very young, that force and strength mean I get to be in control. I'm powerful. I'm the boss. You do what I tell you to do. This is why we need to decolonize schools as well. We are indoctrinating our children into the very same patriarchy that we are seeking to dismantle in other aspects of our lives. What goes hand in hand with patriarchy? Authoritarianism. Again, this entitlement to authority. I've got the biggest guns. I've got the biggest bomb. I've got the biggest army. I'm the most powerful. I win. You do what I tell you to do. That seems to make logical sense, doesn't it? In order to save your own life, you'd be like, yep, you right. You got it. You got it, bruh. Go right ahead. But that's a fundamental thing that we must question and challenge if we're ever going to get free. That strength is not an entitlement to authority. Okay? Again, whether or not you have Aries as a sign that is occupied in your birth chart is of no consequence. I forgot to clean my glasses. Where's my little... I don't even know. Glasses dirty. Even if you don't have Aries in your birth chart, I don't want you to think about that. One of the things that you got to learn when you're following my work is that everything is not about your birth chart. And you'll learn astrology and you'll become really good at it when you understand how to see it in the world around you. So again, in this moment, in your city, in your country, where are you witnessing abandonment? Has your government abandoned you, left you to your own devices? And what is the recklessness that is manifesting in our behaviors because we have been abandoned? The adults have left the room. Courage and audacity are wonderful gifts, but they'll have you out here real fucked up in a minute. Because what is implied by this squares with all of these planets in Capricorn and Mars and Aries is that just because you can, like, that's a really great reason to do something. Because you possess the ability, because you possess the will to do so. But here come Mama Saturn, stand and watch, like, not even saying anything to you. Because the fact of the matter is, I don't need to tell you that death is real. Death does not care about your abilities. The material consequences of your actions do not care how strongly you feel or believe. It is what it is. COVID is there. It's happening. Whether or not you see it, whether or not you know someone personally, whether you think it's 5G, 6G, 12G, 85.7, I don't care. This is a reality. And when we've been abandoned, we are left to find the limits on our own. Those of you who have Sidereal Aries in your birth chart, most certainly you are being triggered. Absolutely. Where were the adults? Where were the adults? Who told you, hey, don't do that? One of the things that I've come to understand as a parent is that the conflict between a parent and a child is absolutely necessary. It is absolutely necessary that you hold a firm limit and boundary when your kid is bumping their head up against it. Because if you don't, they'll never know where the limit is. They'll think all limits are negotiable, and there are some limits that are not negotiable. They will never internalize the capacity to figure out where the limits are on their own, and they're forever going to be that reckless child running around waiting for an adult to tell them to stop. Look at the world around us right now. We are presently in the midst of trauma, wounded by neglect and abandonment from the very people who have the resources and ability to take care of us. Let's get to this Cancer, because this is where it gets real good. The wound of Cancer is indulgence. The gift of Cancer is attunement. That is one of my favorite words right now. We don't say it enough. We don't talk about it enough. We don't understand what it means. This should be a normal word. Attunement means tapped in, plugged in. When you tune an instrument, when you tune a piano, you have this tuning fork. And the person who is skilled in tuning this piano strikes that tuning fork, plucks the string in the piano, and can hear the fine distinctions in the oscillations of the wavelength. That when wavelengths are not in tune with each other, they'll bump up against each other. You know what it sounds like when somebody's singing off key and your ear can't hear it quite right, right? Attunement means I am plugged into and tapped into your moods and your needs. This is what our caregivers are tasked with. I'm going to talk to Pisces for a second. Hi, Pisces, Sidereal Pisces. How y'all doing? Guess what? This word is so important for you. Because for Sidereal Pisces, in order for you to survive, your caregivers were not attuned to you. You had to become attuned to your caregivers. That is a problem for a child who is not verbal, who does not have the resources, the physical ability to meet their own needs. So you mean to tell me that Pisces had to become attuned to their caregivers in order for them to get their needs met? Like, whoo, will the real mommy please stand up? Hello, codependency. But this is something that comes up with Cancer as well. The trauma response to indulgence is addiction. For both Cancer and Aries, there's a real question of where is the adult? Where is the adult? Who's going to stand up and rightly judge the circumstances and make a decision that protects us? Two things that I was thinking about as I was kind of mentally preparing to talk to you guys today. This phrase came to me: innocence in the time of grief. We are sick. We are unwell. We have a problem. The very way that our culture is structured, the very way it functions, serves to strip children of their innocence as soon as possible. What is innocence? Innocence is the freedom to not be concerned with your own immediate survival. That somebody else can be responsible for that. Hi, Scorpio. Who protected you? Aries, who protected you? Capricorn. Who was the parent? Was it you? Did you have to be your own parent? Innocence is not having to worry about time. Somebody else is keeping the time. Your parents are supposed to be Saturn. They're supposed to keep the time. They're supposed to erect proxy limits for you so that you don't run out into the street in the middle of traffic. Because you don't know any better. It's their job to teach you. But when you've been abandoned, you're either reckless or you're courageous. Muhammad Ali, Cancer rising, Mars and Saturn in Aries in the 10th house. Recklessness, courage. The story of Muhammad Ali is that he was a big, strong dude. Somebody stole his bike and he was ready to go to town on someone. And this person intervened like, bruh, let's take this strength and this ability and this will and this fight that you have, and let's take it off the street, because that's going to get you in trouble. You being reckless, son. Let's put it in an appropriate context. There's that Capricorn, right? Muhammad Ali's Capricorn. There's that Capricorn Aries square. That the audacity and the courage becomes that way when the recklessness is given proper context. When somebody somewhere comes in and says, wow, I see you are so strong and you are so powerful. I see what you're capable of. I am impressed. I see you. Did anyone ever say that to you when you were growing up? Did anyone ever say, wow, look at what you're doing. This is amazing. Wow. You know what? Would you like to? Or did they just tell you to stop? Don't do that. We all crave recognition and validation of our abilities. This is what shapes our ambitions, right? If you look in the 2020 Sidereal astrology guide, I talk about Mars as grit and hard work and ambition and drive. All of the questions that I was asking over the course of 2020 in that guide about Aries were about your ambitions and your drive. But the other question here is about power. The fundamental question of cardinal signs is the necessity to control. Who's the boss? So back to innocence. Our culture seeks to strip children of their innocence as early as possible. We leave them in beds to cry alone when they do not have the consciousness or verbal capacity to understand what is happening to them. We strip them of the very one singular tool that they have to articulate their needs, their cry. When you leave a baby to cry it out, you know why you're doing that? Capitalism. Capitalism says count your time for money, not for relationship. I'm going to say that one more time because I don't really think y'all got it. Capitalism says count your time for currency, for money, not for relationship. What are the implications of that? Currency supersedes my capacity to be attuned with my child, to be plugged into the same frequency, to anticipate their needs. By the time a baby is crying of hunger, they've been talking to you for at least 20 minutes. Were your caregivers attuned to notice your hunger cues 20 minutes before you started hollering? Or were they counting their time for currency instead of relationship? 20 minutes before a baby starts crying, they're turning their head from side to side because they're looking for a breast, a nipple. Then they start thrusting their tongue because they're looking for a nipple. They've been talking to you, but are you attuned? This is not common knowledge. In fact, we've all been indoctrinated to raise our children the opposite of this. And look at us now in the middle of a pandemic, and nobody is attuned to your needs. You're hungry, you're houseless, your job is in jeopardy. You don't know who's sick, who got it, who had it. You don't know where the virus lies hiding. No one is attuned to you. What is the consequence of lack of attunement? How do you know when you've had enough if no one ever gave you enough? How do you know when you're full, satisfied? This Cancer Capricorn thing is two sides of the same coin. I say here in this post here on my blog, addiction and repression, those are the trauma responses to Cancer and Capricorn respectively, are two sides of the same coin. How does one learn to regulate, manage, control a mind-body whose needs were never acknowledged? Did they just keep stuffing you? Oh, she's just hungry. Just give her something to eat. I don't worry. Just give her some juice. She'll be fine. Just let that baby have whatever they want. How do you know when you're full and when you've had enough if no one was ever attuned to you? You learn how to honor and meet your own needs based on the way that your caregivers mirrored that to you. This is why we got to have this full moon reading right now, today, and not wait till next week when it's over. Last year, February 7th, 2020, there was a full moon in Cancer, and I watched all of the astrology lovers on my timeline confused as to why and how that full moon could have possibly been in Leo, because they didn't feel none of that stuff that they were told they were supposed to feel. And I just threw out a little tweet. I said, the moon's in Cancer. Thousands of people were like, oh. So what does the full moon in Cancer do? It reminds you that you have a body. Hello, body. Hello, pain. Hello, hunger. Hello, fatigue. Hello, anxiety. Hello, oh, that actually feels good. I like that. Ooh, I don't like that. When we count our time for currency instead of relationship, we get out of attunement with our own bodies. We're tuned to capitalist time, not tuned to body time, not tuned to relationship time. Relationship time means being plugged into each other and understanding the validity of our needs. And when we see our neighbor in need, we don't turn back to our capitalism clock and start clocking hours. We plug in and get attuned and say, how can I meet that need? Do you speak that way to yourself? I started off talking about the cyclical nature of time. Our bodies are cyclical. But we've been indoctrinated to attune our bodies to capitalism time. Everything is money. Don't waste my time. Because I do not own my time. My employer owns my time. I exchange my time for wages because I need these wages to survive. You see how we have replaced wages with relationship? We should be saying, I need you to survive. We need each other to survive. Instead, we're arguing over how much someone else's labor should cost, because I'll be damned if somebody else is getting more currency for their time than I get for my time. We're sick. Let's pull some cards. I knew I wasn't going to be preaching how I normally preach today, because Cancer just is a shock to the system in a culture like ours, because we have been indoctrinated to put our relationships with each other and our bodies at the very bottom of the list. Everything we do, to when we eat, how we see each other, how we relate each other, when we sleep, when we wake, what we drink when we wake up in the morning, what we drink when we go to bed at night. We're managing our energy levels to keep capitalism time. We're managing our sleep to keep capitalism time. We're managing our relationships with each other to keep capitalism time. Can you eat, drink, sleep without thinking about somebody else who owns your time? Oh, I don't know what these cards about to say, but I'm ready. Let's just get it popping. Let's just do it. Let's just get it done. Oh man. I hope y'all doing all right, Clubhouse. Thank you all for tuning in. Instagram, YouTube. This will be available for replay on Instagram and on YouTube after this is all over. So, you know. Let's see. I feel like I really need to give these cards a good shuffle. All right. We've got the Sun. What you see is what you get, what you get. Y'all don't know nothing about that. That's the Sun card. I be really shook when I see this card because oftentimes when we come to the tarot, we're expecting some grand revelation. We're expecting something hidden to be exposed. But when the Sun card comes up, it's like, nope, exactly what you're looking at, that is exactly what it is. So as I flip over these other cards, we're gonna see what it is. Clarity, insight. We've got the Five of Wands. We've got Justice. Ooh. And we've got Devil. Ooh, let's start with this one, y'all. Oh, let's do it. Shall we go back, Saints? Excuse me. Shall we go back 2 weeks ago when, I did a reading for the new moon in Sagittarius. And I asked, who is your enemy? And I brought up a song by Jonathan McReynolds called Cycles. I listened to that song all week because it was preaching to me. And the song says, the devil will learn from your mistakes, even if you don't. And I said, well, look at that. Y'all are so funny on Instagram. Oh God, somebody said, you know it's hot when the burps come up. I guess so. But there's that devil. And I said, the devil is your body. Oh, how timely. I love when spirit is consistent. And it'd just be like, oh no, you thought that you were finished? You thought that that was just something you were going to talk about once? No, don't you see all of these planets still in Capricorn? I'm calling this the power of protection because we do not respect the power of protection. We do not believe we are entitled to be protected. We leave ourselves and each other exposed. We leave our children to cry alone when they have no words to communicate and say what's wrong. We ignore their cues, articulating to us what their needs are. We are attuned to capitalist time. We are not attuned to each other. And because of that, we traumatize and wound each other generation after generation. We still have not gotten over, in the early part of the 20th century, the way doctors would advise mothers not to pick up their babies. Can you wrap your mind around that? A child, a being who literally does not have the physical capability to move from one room to the next, does not have language, cannot hold their head. And they said, don't pick up the baby. I want you all to think really deep about this because the trauma that look at the ages of the people who are in office right now. They're born in the 40s and in the 50s and in the 60s during this time where scientific leadership was telling them to not pick up your baby, to let your baby cry. Don't you dare spoil that baby. understand that the reason they so easily neglect us is because they were neglected. They were left to cry. They were left to lay. They were not paid attention to. They were ignored. They were seen and not heard. They were neglected. They were abandoned. But they were also indulged. The baby boomer generation is the generation of people who had more wealth than any previous generation or any generation to follow. The millennial generation is the first generation who will not do better than their parents. Neglect, repression, indulgence, addiction, abandonment, recklessness. You have a body. Did you know that? Did you know that your body exists independent of the systems and structures of the country and communities you occupy? Yet your body is colonized because the very way you interpret when to pee, when to eat, what to eat, how to sleep, what to take to get to sleep, what to take to wake up, what to take to stay up, is determined by capitalism. You are not attuned to your own body and your own needs. And what happens when we get transits through cancer is like, guess what, my homie, you got a body and you haven't heard it. You haven't been listening to it. Your own capacity to hear the voice of your own body has been colonized by people who would like to overtake your physical powers and abilities to preserve their power. To the point you can't even get to sleep at night. You cannot stay awake without caffeine, can't get to sleep without Ambien, can't focus without maca, or that 2 o'clock cup of coffee to keep you from the slump. Your body said, take a damn nap. Go to sleep. Oh man, you grind now, sleep later. No, grind now, die early. And these are for many people who actually have a choice. The generational trauma and curse of neglect is meeting us at the carpet. It is radical to breastfeed your child until both of you get sick of it. It is radical to sleep in the bed with your child until they feel safe enough to sleep on their own. It is radical to carry your baby in this culture and wear them. It is radical to be attuned to the fundamental basic needs of a child. And yet here we all are, adults, wounded by the trauma of neglect. It's loud. It's in your face. It's right there for you to see. Right now in Chicago, the Chicago Teachers Union has all decided that they are not going to go into the school buildings tomorrow and they're going to teach remotely. The Chicago Public School District has decided that for teachers who do not show up into the classroom, they will be locked out of their account. So you mean to tell me for teachers who do not feel safe entering a classroom in the middle of a pandemic, you punish the children? My God, we are sick. We threw away potatoes while people were hungry at the beginning of this pandemic. Let's go back here. We've got the 5 of Wands, and Spirit was very clearly saying about not being on one accord. This really is analogous to Aries for me in terms of having individual wills with individual agendas, abilities, and capabilities. But how can we get on one accord? Personally, in your personal life, the 5 of Wands is about intention. It's about what is the motivating factor for your actions, your choices, and behavior? What is the fundamental belief and conviction that informs the direction you move? Yes, you might be capable. Yes, you might possess the ability. But why? The power of protection. The opposite of that is the power of being left exposed and vulnerable to harm. You deserve to have been protected. You deserve for your innocence to have been preserved until the appropriate time. You deserve to have been safe. You deserve to have been a child. Do you believe that? Or do you believe that you need to be prepared for the roughness of the world by exposing your children to roughness inside your home? You need to prepare your child for the neglect that they're going to experience at the hands of their government by neglecting them. You need to teach your child how to be a good wage laborer by preparing them for capitalism in your own home. In my introduction to 2021, The Will to Live, I said that the myth of free will has not illuminated our liberation. In fact, it has created the most successful campaign of settler colonialism in history. By convincing you that your protection or your safety is your problem, they don't have to come and rape and pillage anymore. They changed your mind and how you interpret your own body. They've changed your eating and sleeping habits and patterns. They've infiltrated your relationships. They've got you indoctrinating your children without any violent force. Training your children to be good wage laborers so they can grow up and fight with somebody else about how how much somebody else's labor is worth. Can you wrap your mind around the idea that two people who are both being ripped off by corporations are fighting over who should be paid less? Do you love yourself? You have a body. Can you hear it? Or do you only hear capitalism? Justice. Tick-tock. We saw this card earlier today when I did a reading for one of the volunteers, and I talked about justice as a card of making decisions. Actually, this is the perfect time to go back to this blog post here and to read one of these little things. I said, Libra is missing from this cardinal party, right? So the scales of justice, justitia. This is Libra. That means we will be looking to what Libra represents as a solution. Objective, agreed upon principles that help us know what to do in any given situation. That's law and legislation. So in terms of our collective experience of this full moon, we should be looking to the moon in Libra. I don't have that in front of me, but if you have your 2021 Sidereal iCal in your phone, just swipe ahead a week from the 28th and the moon should be in Libra then. So that should be a significant time. All 4 cardinal signs in the sky will be occupied. That's going to be intense. It's going to be very intense. The last Libra moon, that was the coup. The Capitol siege in Washington, D.C. was the last Libra moon, setting off the square to Capricorn, the opposition to Mars and Aries. Spirit is asking you to check your motivations and your politics and your beliefs for ways that they have been colonized by power structures who do not believe you deserve to be protected. This is why America is obsessed with guns. Because your safety is your own problem. You better tighten up. Conceal and carry. A bunch of abandoned children become reckless and fight each other, vying for power and control. That's why we all need guns. Where's mom and dad? These wounds are all connected. Indulgence, neglect, abandonment, addiction, repression, recklessness. We have a choice. And I'm going to be honest. Again, part of the reason why I said we need to do this this full moon reading today and not wait until next week when it's after, because you don't want to miss this. Moon comes to Cancer and all of a sudden you remember you have a body, and grief you have not had the opportunity to express infiltrates your daily routine, upsetting your eating and sleeping habits, shifting the way that you experience your own body. This particular full moon occurs at 14 degrees, which is quite significant because if we fast forward to July 1st, 2021, Mars and Saturn are opposed to each other. Mars and Cancer, Capricorn, Saturn at 18 degrees. So this little opposition at the full moon is giving us a taste. It's giving us a prelude. I'm going to get this 2021 guide to you shortly. I've actually finished writing my drafts of all of the content inside. So hopefully in the next week or two, we'll get it done. Now we're playing with Mercury retrograde, but it is what it is. So anyways, all of that to say that this full moon is giving us a prelude of a pretty hefty opposition that we're going to be confronting over the summer. All the month of June, that opposition is going to be building. I did talk about that quite in depth in the 2021 The Will to Live, my forecasts and predictions for this year. And I offered 12 horoscopes for each sign, and you might have 2 if your moon and rising sign are different. And I talked about some of the themes that are occurring this year. But we have a choice. And that's the funny thing, like when we get transits through Cancer, like there was a stellium in Cancer back in July and August of 2019. Your body will bully you and be like, hello. Hello. Hi, it's me, your body. I'm thirsty. I'm sleepy. Right? How are you remembering your body? How is your body forcing you to remember it? There was something that came up in my mind I was supposed to say. Let me see if I can recall it. I was talking about Innocence. I can't remember. Anyways, I think that this reading has been pretty straightforward. Yeah, man. It's tough times ahead. The Capricorn tsunami is coming. And it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt. The last time Saturn was in Capricorn, we weren't counting the deaths because we were homophobic. We don't really know how many people died because we weren't counting. We only count things that we can control and that matter, like money, time. We don't count the deaths of people we discard. And when we don't count the people we discard, there's a lot of collateral damage. We won't know the truth of this moment for a very long time. Spirit was very adamant with me about giving you guys some scriptures that you can recite. There's just one in my mind right now, and I'm going to read it to you really quickly. And I'm going to read the King James Version because that's what my ancestors like. This is not about authentic translation. This is about calling upon those who have the power to protect you. Psalms 90, Psalms, we always put S's where they don't belong. Psalm 91 says, whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, he is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. Surely he will save you from the fowler's snare and from the deadly pestilence. Do we have a deadly pestilence? He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and rampart. You will not fear the terror of night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in the darkness, nor the plague that destroys at midday. 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. You will only observe with your eyes and see the punishment of a wicked. What a word for this moment. If you say, the Lord is my refuge, and you make the Most High your dwelling, no harm will overtake you. No disaster will come near your tent, for he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. They will lift you up in their hands so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. Every time I read that, I'm thinking about stubbing toes. You will tread on the lion and the cobra. You will trample the great lion and the serpent. Because he loves me, says the Lord, I will rescue him. I will protect him, for he acknowledges my name. He will call on me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life, I will satisfy him and show him my salvation. I say amen, and so it is. I strongly suggest that you get your hands on some protection oil from one of your favorite root workers, one of your favorite witches. I strongly suggest that you go back into your lineage and find the ways that your people sought out protection when they were exposed and vulnerable. I strongly suggest you talk to your ancestors. I strongly suggest you pray. I strongly suggest that you do whatever it is that you have to do to protect yourself. If you're feeling some resistance to these things that I'm saying, you need to ask yourself why you would reject protection. All right? YouTube, y'all always the first to go. I love y'all, but I can't keep 3 streams. So I will see you all soon, YouTube. We'll come back in a couple weeks for the new moon in Capricorn. It's rough, y'all. Peace out, YouTube.